Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Medicine and Science on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Palavita. I'm going to be your moderator today. And today we have a special guest. It's not Dr. Patmos, it's Dr. Scott Kolbaba, and he is actually another board certified doctor in internal medicine, and author of two books. One, Physicians Untold Story, which will be soon available, if not already, on the Pod TV network. So with our deal with Amazon, it's called Physicians Untold Stories. And yes, I'm going to go get that one. And then Claire's Magic Gardens is the second one. So with no further ado, we're going to talk about a subject that is important to everybody. It's depression and suicide, a depressing topic, but somebody's got to do it. And with that, we're going to bring in the good Dr. Scott Kolbaba. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your show. So the floor is yours. So you can go ahead and talk about the topic.
Well, hopefully we won't make it too depressing today. Hopefully we can make some interesting revelations and some exciting news about depression in this country. Before I get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I decided to become a doctor when I was a little kid. And there were a couple of bumps in the road on my way to that profession. And one was, you guys can't tell this to anyone, but I faint at the sight of blood. Now, I've overcome that, but that was a real big negative when I was trying to decide about a lifestyle and a career. The other thing was I had some encouragement from my parents. My mother told me that only the real smart kids get into medical school, and they have to have lots of money because it's very expensive. And despite that, I still persevered and ended up as a doc, and I've loved it. And most of the things that we do, I'm a general internist. Most of the things that I do are just ordinary things. I take care of hangnails and chest pain and some of the stuff that's not so exciting, like hemorrhoids and diarrhea and things like that. And I love what I do. I think occasionally we do some good in the world. And it's rare, unlike TV shows, it's rare that I run into situations where I can actually save a life. And those are really very exciting circumstances. And I'm going to tell you about one of those times. I was called to the emergency room to see a little girl. I'll call her Emily. Emily's 13. And as I got closer to the room where she was, I could hear sobbing inside. And as I opened the door with a little bit of anxiety, there was Emily laying on a gurney, comatose. She looked like death. And her mother was standing there sobbing, uncontrollably holding her cold hand. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And what turns out, Emily overdosed on a medication that her mother took, and Emily was in a coma. And so we whisked her up to the ICU and did all the things that you have to do in the ICU, the antiemetics and all the things that we do to keep a person going, intubation, and so forth. And she survived, which was fantastic, obviously. But I didn't. I was forever changed after that experience, and after that, I decided that I needed to do something about these kids. And so I looked into the incidence of depression and what the CDC had to say about how many kids are in trouble, and especially post-pandemic. I was shocked at the statistics. 3 out of 5 young girls are depressed throughout their teenage years. That's amazing. And 1 out of 3 have seriously considered suicide. That's an epidemic. It's an epidemic in this country. And the problem is that we have very limited resources, mental health resources. And when I try to get a psychiatrist to see someone that's really disturbed, it takes weeks and months sometimes to get a psychiatrist. So lots of people aren't being well served by our medical community in terms of mental health. And I think that you'll see that over and over on news shows and so forth. And so I thought, what can I do to make this different? What can I do to help people that can't get mental health care? And so I wrote a book called Claire's Magic Garden about a little girl that was kind of despondent, didn't have many friends, and ultimately through a magic garden she becomes happy, contented, and satisfied with her life. And then I wanted to do something else in addition to that. And what I decided to do was to go on the circuit like I'm on right now, with an idea that I think is new for most people in how to deal with depression and how we can make a difference, how everyone here can make a difference in teen depression and potentially save lives. And what I came across is that the concept of purpose. We've discovered, and many studies support this, that if a teen especially, has a passion and develops that into a purpose and uses that to help others, that is a phenomenal thing, has phenomenal power to help either prevent depression or to treat depression, and it doesn't cost anything. Now, let me just go through some of the symptoms of a teen depression before I go into that purpose idea a little bit more. Teen depression is very similar to adult depression. People feel despondent. Teens will stop grooming themselves. The grades will suffer. They'll not be wanting to go out with their friends. They'll lose interest in their hobbies and activities. And when a teen starts to talk about how maybe the world would be better off without them, that's a real red flag. Those are the kids that are really seriously thinking about suicide. And those are the ones that you really need to pay attention to. Now, what are the causes that we're finding, especially post-pandemic, of depression in teens? And the causes seem to be social media. Social media is good and bad. What's bad about social media is everyone posts the wonderful things that they're doing, how they're how they have a wonderful family life, how they connect with others, how their vacations are spectacular, their new clothes and so forth. And everyone's trying to keep up with that, and it's impossible to do that. And there's also bullying as part of that social media too. And bullying has been shown to be one of the major causes of suicide in teens. According to the CDC, between 2 and 9 times the amount of kids that are bullied are 2 to 9 times more likely to commit suicide than others, and that's a huge cause of this. The other thing is academics. I'm a part of the Northwestern Medicine psychiatric unit for adolescents, and we see the kids there, and it's very interesting. In the summertime, when there's no school, we close the unit. There aren't any kids in the psych unit, and so it's very interesting. The academics and academic stress and peer stress when kids are in school is a big one for depression. Also, genetics is a component. If people have everyone in the family is depressed, they have a high likelihood of being depressed, and then there's, in addition to that, family strife. Divorces are huge in a teen's life and are a big cause of depression. Now, purpose is something that everyone needs. There's a purpose for a purpose. And, if you wake up in the morning with something that you're excited about doing, you tend to be less depressed. Now, how do we define purpose? The psychiatric associations define purpose as following your passions, pursuing those passions, and using those to do something good in the world or help others. Now, how do we help teens find their purpose? Let me give you an example. When I was a kid, I got interested in hot air balloons, and it was kind of a crazy interest. And my parents were always very anxious to help me. I was an only child. I'm not spoiled at all, of course. My parents would always want to help me pursue any of those crazy passions that I had. And they used to take me around to the Midwest to see balloon shows. They even let me create I used a barrel and put wood in the barrel and lit the wood on fire. Nothing exploded, thank goodness. And I used the vacuum cleaner and reversed the flow of the vacuum cleaner. So I put air into the barrel, and then I put hot air. Actually, it was a weather balloon on the other side, and the weather balloon filled up with hot air. Well, it cooled off pretty quickly, but it was one of those crazy things that my parents would indulge me. And so, one of the things that will help with teens discovering their purpose is to help them and help take an interest in what they do. One of the things that we're facing in this country is everyone's so busy. Parents are busy. They're working 2 jobs. Both husband and wife have to work these days to make ends meet, and it's hard to to pay enough attention to some of the kids sometimes. And one of the things that is so important is to help a teen discover their passion. If they discover their passion and they can pursue that to make it their purpose and use that to help others, that's huge. Let me tell you a story about a young fellow. His name is Kevin Hines. Kevin Hines has become a folk hero in the Depression arena. Kevin was 19 years old, and in September of 2000, September 25th, 2000, Kevin decided to commit suicide. He had been depressed for many years. He had his father bring him to the City College of San Francisco, where he gave his father a hug. And he said he rarely gave his father a hug for some reason, but he decided to do it that day because he thought that would be the last hug he'd ever give his father. He then took a bus and walked onto the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. There was a lady that asked him to take a photograph of her, and he obliged and did that. And then he climbed up on the guardrail and jumped off. It's about 200 feet to the water, and very few people have survived that jump. Kevin, as soon as he jumped off the bridge, realized that he made a mistake. He fell down, went down into the water 70 feet, was head first. He broke multiple vertebrae in his body. He couldn't move his legs, and he finally came up to the surface, but he was waterlogged, and his boots were full of water, and he was realizing that he was going to drown. He was going to sink into the water. What happened then is very interesting. He saw a shark circling him, and he thought, oh my goodness, here I've jumped off the bridge, I've lived, but now the shark's going to eat me. It turns out that later on he found out it wasn't a shark, it was a sea lion. And what happened with the sea lion is it started to swim in circles underneath him, buoying him up, preventing him sinking into the water, and literally saved his life until the Coast Guard could get him. Kevin spent the next couple months in psychiatric care and in hospitals with his injuries, but he decided that his purpose would be to help others prevent suicide, and he's done that. And he's helped probably hundreds of thousands of people with his podcast, with his interviews. And so he has become an example of how finding your purpose is one of the things that will definitely prevent and sometimes treat a serious depression. There are lots of people in the country now that are coming on the bandwagon with finding your purpose. There's a lady, Minnie Bredow, in California that is passionate about this. And she says that what we're doing now is we're treating depression, we're not preventing it. And the prevention can be as simple as finding your purpose. And it can be a simple thing. I'll never forget, I was visiting my grandkids in Phoenix, and we decided to go out fishing. It'd be the first time that the two boys had ever been fishing. So we took them out to a unlikely place to catch any fish. It was in the middle of the city. It was a city park and had a little pond in the middle of the park. And we got our fishing poles out, and no one got hooked, thank goodness. And we fished for about 2 hours and caught nothing. And I thought, oh, this is a terrible mistake. It was a very unsuccessful fishing trip. But about 2 years later, I was visiting my grandkids in Phoenix, and one of them said to me, "Grampy, that fishing trip? That was the best day of my life." I still get a little choked up about that. So it's simple things can sometimes make a huge difference. There are fishermen now and are fishing for forever. They love it, and it's all started with just a simple act of taking them fishing. My other grandson in Houston, for example, was struggling with some things, and I mentioned to him that I was a member of the chess club in high school. Yes, I was a nerd, and I loved it. And I'd mentioned that, and then a couple months later, I found out that he had joined his chess club, and within the last year or so, he's won multiple chess tournaments. He's turned that into his passion and his purpose, and now he helps other kids learn how to play chess. And so it can be a very simple thing, so it doesn't require lots and lots of effort. What can you do right now to help a teen find their purpose. You can help them pursue their passions, find out what their passions are, help them by obliging them with mentors that are in that field. You can help them by spending time with them, doing that activity. And so it's relatively simple, and that can make a huge difference. And you can literally save a life by helping a teen pursue their passion and find a purpose.
Hey, Dr. Papa, one thing I've got to tell you that you'll enjoy, and all along those lines, because you was beginning your story and everything, and talking about how you got into the medical profession several decades ago, because my nephews are 14 and 15. Yeah, they'll be 15 and 16 later on this year in August and everything. So this would have been probably about almost 2 decades ago. I actually had a accident where I fell down on a highway and broke my arm, and all in that space. So I had to go to the hospital. The EMT came and got me, because when you fall down, you oftentimes don't know that you've broken anything, even though I heard it crack and everything, but I didn't realize that it had broken at that particular time. So when I eventually got to the EMT and the EMT got me to the hospital, I had to have a, get the bone reset and the blood test and all along those lines. And my younger brother, who has always been very adventuristic and has had some accidents in his life and everything, he came because my dad was called first. So they greeted my dad first, and then my brother came and everything. And my brother is still very active and still somewhat active in his life now, because he drives a slingshot and everything. But when he got there, he was they were drawing my blood, and they were sitting there, and they were going like, my brother started to do like you did. He started to be like fainting, and he was starting to get very faint, and he had to leave the room and everything. And my mom and my dad looked at my brother, is like, why are you getting sick? What's the matter? You're the one you've fallen down. You had glasses, like glass, like an aquarium put on you. You've been in all kinds of surgery. Why are you upset that at the sight of blood? Because you've seen your own blood. And Malik, that's my brother's name, said, "You don't understand. That was my blood, not my brother's," and everything. So he was having a whole notion of being very scared at seeing the blood that was coming out of my body versus the blood that had come out of his own and everything. So yeah, he had that similar kind of reaction to you. So I just had to share that little bit of a story with you.
Well, we watched a movie in an operation in 8th grade, and I was the only kid in class that just went out cold. And I'm the only one that went into the medical field. So, you can overcome anything, I think, if you really have a desire to do something bad enough. And so I'm fine now. My patients don't have to worry. I don't get squeamish at the sight of blood anymore, and I do some minor procedures in the office, and some could be reasonably bloody, and I just do fine. So.
Well, that's good to know and everything. I did have a question for you. Actually, I got a couple of questions, but one of the questions I had for you is, there is this notion. I grew up during the era of emergency, and I guess I'm dating myself in some of the TV shows. I can even go back to Marcus Welby, MD, and now you've got things like Chicago Fire and Chicago Med, which highlight the EMTs and the medical profession. Sure. Of course, they do get a little bit soap opera, because they definitely have the romances and other things going on in those shows. But how much do you find those shows being kind of similar to what you have to deal with, and minus maybe the soap opera aspect, because medical shows are very popular even in the narrative world and in the world of television and movies? But I just wonder, how much do you find that to be realistic portrayals?
Well, medicine is mostly ordinary routine stuff. It's like, I've got a back pain, I've got a sore throat, I've got a cold. My wife wants to leave me, and what do how can you help me? Or, those kinds of things. It's rarely stuff you see on TV, but the stuff on TV really happens. And, some of that stuff is pretty accurate. I'm impressed when I don't have much time to watch too many shows like that, but when I watch those shows and see some of the medical terms and the stuff that they bring out, those are pretty accurate. It doesn't happen as often as they portray, though. I'm not saving lives every day. As a matter of fact, we have a little plaque in our office that we put the names of people in the office that have saved lives, and we've got about 2 or 3 on that plaque. It just started about a year ago, and so it doesn't happen very often. But those shows are pretty accurate, but not the frequency. The frequency
Not the frequency and everything.
Yeah.
But I know Nick's probably got a question for you as well. But the other thing that I was curious about, and it comes back to teen depression, because like I said, my nephews, don't have any kids of my own, are definitely in those teen years. I know, and you kind of
Mhm.
alluded to a lot, that a lot of them are on their social media. I think during the pandemic, we saw
Yes.
that there was a rise in depression among our teenagers. And a
Yes.
lot of them, even if you go out to restaurants, because I don't live that far from Duke's campus, you will see them oftentimes at the restaurants on their social media, doing whether
Sure.
it's Facebook or Instagram or a number of other things, sometimes
Mhm.
being more engaged with those people than the people that are there in the room with them and everything. So I just wondered
Yes.
your take on this kind of, because you called it an epidemic, and I agree with you, this epidemic of loneliness that is out there and how it might be impacting our teenagers, including maybe even the bullying aspect that goes on as well. Because we also have a bullying show on this network that airs on Sundays at 6. So the young lady who was in Kansas was bullied in relationship and in work, and her son Gene was bullied in relationships and music and a number of other places. But I was just wondering your take on this notion of what the kids are going through.
Well, I have 7 kids and a ton of grandkids. I've got a dozen grandkids right now, and I've been in rooms where one of the kids or grandkids will actually text me instead of talking to me. They'll be across the room from me, and it's crazy. They don't answer their phones anymore. They'll just answer the text, and so we've lost the social communication that is, I think, so important for building character. uh, what you can do on a text and a social media is you can say things that you wouldn't say to a person's face, and there's a lot of bullying that's going on with that, and that is so devastating. And what you see on social media is you see the perfect person. They've got the perfect makeup, they've got the perfect clothes. No one can be that good, and everyone's wants more and more likes. So you're trying to please others with what you're doing, and you're not pleasing yourself. And so it's a huge problem. Social media is great for communications, for lots of things like that, but it's devastating for the teen that isn't in the elite group that is perfect, quote, end of quote. So
I'm
it,
gonna
it's
throw I'm gonna throw a question to you that I know Nick's gonna pick up on as well. But like I said, I'm across the street from Duke, and I know that there are a number of people, including medical doctors, and they're along those lines. And I know one of the reasons that this network was formed, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school, is because Nick and Kim, who are the two founders, had felt that there wasn't enough education around fiscal literacy and a number of other things that exist in that lane. So did you learn enough about fiscal literacy when you were in medical school? And do you think that that's something that needs to be taught? Because I know doctors are taught ethics courses, but I don't know that they're taught courses about fiscal literacy. And in some cases, you are literally going to open a practice. Like you said, sometimes you go to work for other people, like by going to a hospital or going to work for an individual, but sometimes you are setting up your own practice. So did you learn enough about the whole notion of business and business acumen and the fiscal side of business? And do you think that that's something that our medical schools need to be teaching?
Well, when I went to medical school, we learned nothing about fiscal literacy and business in medicine. Fortunately, I love business, and I was an economics and business major in college. So I knew a lot more than most of my peers. And it seems like whenever I join an organization of physicians, they'd want me to either be the treasurer or run the organization because I knew more business and financial things than most other people. So it was kind of interesting. But no, there's nothing like that. What's happened in medicine is very interesting. Most doctors can't be by themselves anymore. They can't be solo docs because the real problem is the reimbursement. Insurance companies are ratcheting down every year. We just got a notice from Medicare. They're reducing their premium, their reimbursement by about 2%. And that if that happens every year, docs are struggling, especially with the computerization. We spend probably $150,000 a year just on computers. And then you need a new server, something goes wrong, you call your IT guy. And so it's very difficult for docs to open a private practice. So most docs these days are going into large organizations, hospital systems, and then large clinics. In our town, we have basically 2 organizations. We have the Northwestern Group, and then we have Dooley Group, which is a large physician organization. And you really can't make ends meet unless you join a large group. So most people probably don't need too much fiscal education because the organization takes care of everything. Which
Scott, just on that same note and everything, what is your thoughts and what is your concerns around professional or kind of like the business model of hospitals? Because I do know that there are private hospitals, but there are a lot of corporate hospitals that are out there as well. So I just wanted your take on that, because I do know that there is a number of private hospitals that are run more as corporations than the actual kind of the old-fashioned way of doing medicine. But I just wanted your take on that, because you kind of alluded to it, but I just wanted your take on this kind of push toward corporate medicine.
Most doctors don't like corporate medicine. Most docs like to have an individual practice where they can make their own decisions about how many nurses they need to hire and how many hours they work and things like that. So corporate medicine is reasonably unpopular with doctors in general. Hospitals have to make a commitment to take care of patients. So I don't think there's a big difference in corporate medicine versus the non-for-profits in terms of how they care for patients. Everyone has to see patients, and what we're seeing now is a huge demand. The hospitals are filled all around the country, and so we used to be able to admit people to the hospital by calling up the room, the bed coordinator, and they'd say, okay, we'll have a room 330 available in 2 hours. We'll call the patient. Now the hospital is totally filled. We have to send patients to the emergency room to get into the hospital, which is crazy. And the emergency rooms are jam-packed. There are 6-hour waits, and This is not just our hospital; it's lots of hospitals. So and what's happened? Why there are many more patients? I don't know. I don't know why hospitals are filled.
I just have to do our usual disclaimer, because some of these shows are run on iHeartRadio and Spotify. And so our usual disclaimer is that this show is for education purposes only. If you have a problem, please consult your own physician, so that we know that people will do that. Which gets to my question. What happens if one of the viewers and they spot one of their kids have teen depression? What should they do? Is there any organization out there that can support them or help them? I don't think the schools are equipped to do anything. What should they do?
Well, as we talked about before, there's a number of things. If they're profoundly depressed, then they need to seek medical care. Their personal private physician, psychiatry or psychology. Psychiatrists can prescribe medication, psychologists can't. But the idea of finding your purpose is a very powerful one. And it's hard to get in to see professionals in mental health these days. Millions of people are not able to get into professional help, to get professional help. So we think that they need to sit down with their kid. Now, what you don't want to do is sit down with your child and say, "Well, how's your day?" or "How and you know what you're going to get there. "Oh, it's fine. What'd you learn in school?" "Nothing." That kind of thing. What I like to do, we live in a circle. Okay, so when I like to take walks with our kids, and so you do one-on-one, and you take a walk, and then you just let things kind of bubble up and what they want to talk about. And it's amazing how beneficial that is. And I can find out lots and lots about what's going on with the kid, rather than say, "Well, how was your day?" That doesn't work. So taking a walk and being with your kids. My wife loves to take kids in the car, because the kids think that no one can hear them in the front seat. And she learns a lot about what's happening in the social scene with their kids and who's in trouble and who isn't in trouble. So getting professional help can be very helpful. And then, pursuing the kids' passion, find out what they love. Our kids loved baseball. And so we were traveling all around the country in traveling leagues in baseball, and they would help their little brothers and sisters and neighbors. So they're pursuing their passion. It became their purpose, and they use that purpose to help others. And that can be phenomenally beneficial. If you like animals, you can volunteer at an animal shelter. There are stories of people that have done amazing things. One kid in Canada, I can't remember the name, I've got it written down here, decided that there was a problem with water in Africa. And so they decided to raise some money to drill a well in a particular town. And they did that, and they raised enough money to do that. And that was so successful that he became, interested in raising more money. That became his passion and his purpose. and it helped others. And if you can develop that in your child, that will make a huge difference. A huge difference.
That makes
Right.
a lot of sense. I know we're winding down and everything, but
Yeah.
just really quickly before we end, because you mentioned chess, and I know that Nick Palveda is a chess champion. I used to
The
play
chess show.
briefly
Yeah.
way back when and everything, but I
Mhm.
am nowhere near the capability of some of the members of this network, like Nick and Sasha Starr and a number of others that are part of it. So I just wondered what was the importance of chess in your life and in your development of creating positive self-esteem and other things that it might have done in your life. So what was the importance of chess to you, Scott?
Well, chess is a fun game. It's a cerebral game, and I just enjoyed playing. I enjoyed learning more and more about the moves and what things you can do to win. And I played my dad a lot. It was got good binding experience with my dad. I'm not sure if he tried to lose or if he just wasn't a good chess player, but it was kind of fun to play him and win most of the time. And so I think it's one of those little things that help in my career development. And I think if kids have an interest in that kind of a thing, they should pursue it. And my grandson is becoming quite the chess player. So,
Good. I mean, something we actually run on the Pod TV network. We actually do have a chess show. It runs every Saturday by chess expert from Canada, Sasha Starr, and international master Ken Reagan, who's also a professor at State University in Buffalo. But we want to thank Dr. Kalala about his and also his book. As soon as we can get that on the network, you'll all be able to take a look at it. And we want to thank our audience, not just in the United States, from around the world, for watching once again Medicine and Science. And we'll see you back next time. Take care. Bye-bye.